Greetings, my lovelies. This is Blake here, and welcome to my review of the 2016 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. And I feel like there was a lot riding on the shoulders of this show because audiences have had their faith shaken in the Royal Rumble matches because the past few have been very disappointing. I would say that the 2014 Royal Rumble was underrated. I thought the match card was solid and the match itself was very entertaining. However, Batista winning was a mistake. The conclusion to that match just sort of spoiled everything, and therefore people look upon the 2014 Royal Rumble with disdain for that reason alone. The 2015 Royal Rumble, on the other hand, just outright sucked. There was some silver lining. The triple threat between Rollins, Lesnar, and Cena was really good. However, I thought the presentation of the Rumble match was really, really bad. And all it ultimately did was kill Roman Reigns' momentum and cause the crowds to totally turn on him. And it's a shame because I personally love the Royal Rumble. It is my favorite of the annual pay-per-views, the one I look forward to the most, even more so than WrestleMania. So I really wanted to see WWE get back on track here, but there was hope. I actually really liked the 2015 TLC. And the following few weeks of programming was really compelling. I enjoyed the first few Raws. I liked the matches. I liked the booking. I liked most of the storytelling involved in all those. But then it seemed like the few weeks before this year's Royal Rumble, they just sort of fell off the wagon. Everything became sloppy once more. And even though a lot of the matches were still exciting, I thought the stories lost a lot of their impact. I thought the booking became more bizarre, and I started becoming critical and cynical once more. So let's move on to the show and figure out whether or not it was any good. Well, first we have the kickoff match, which was Mark Henry and Jack Swagger versus the Dudley Boyz versus the Ascension versus Damien Sandow and Darren Young. And whoever wins, that team will get spots on the Royal Rumble match. So at least that adds a little bit importance to this filler. Unfortunately, the match itself wasn't very good. It wasn't bad. It was just very average, like something you'd see on Superstars or Main Event, maybe SmackDown, but probably one of the first two. The only issue I had with the match itself, well, there was a few issues, but I thought the finish was really awkward. It seemed like there were some mistakes made. Mark Henry looked confused as to who he was supposed to pin. So I don't think you should really watch this match. The only thing that stood out was Damien Sandow got a very positive reaction from the crowd, which made me smile because it seemed like when he returned on SmackDown a few weeks ago, it was as if everybody had forgotten about him and he got barely any reaction. So this shows that the audiences still love him, and I have hope that maybe WWE will make up for their ultimate fuck up with how they have used Damien Sandow. But otherwise, when you look at the match, like, why should we care? Mark Henry and Jack Swagger are for the most part jobbers. They will beat the guys like Adam Rose or Heath Slater, but they'll get their ass kicked by anybody who's relevant. The Dudleys, god damn it. This makes me kind of sad just because you know how far the Dudleys have fallen and that they're competing with these guys whom WWE do not really care about right now and who aren't particularly relevant. Ever since returning to the WWE, they came in with a splash and it was awesome, but then all they've done is really a job since then. Yeah, they'll beat the Ascension, but everybody beats the Ascension. And of course, that's what I think about the Ascension. Their highlights these days is when they go back to NXT to do the job. So WWE has pretty much ruined them. Damien Sandow and Darren Young, that's an odd team. Did Titus O'Neil and Darren Young break up? Did Hulu cut that out? I don't remember anything there. And why is he with Damien Sandow? And once again, why did they fuck up Damien Sandow so much? It would have been really cool if he showed up in this Royal Rumble as like a surprise entrant, and maybe you could argue that, okay, well, this is the beginning of his new career where the WWE will actually utilize him, but nope, he lost this match. Instead, they gave it to Mark Henry and Jack Swagger, the one team who had no reception amongst the crowd. Sandow and Young were popular because Sandow was part of that. The Dudleys are still reasonably popular, even though they're slowly losing the crowds because they keep losing. The Ascension, they don't really interest anybody, but because they were the only villains of this match, at least they got some boos. But Mark Henry and Jack Swagger, just dead silence. But at least they have the most credible solo careers of everybody here, so I could sort of see why WWE went with them. But still, a pretty shitty kickoff match. Moving on to the official card, we started with the Intercontinental Championship bout between Dean Ambrose and Kevin Owens. Now, this actually had a pretty good story. There were some flaws in it. I didn't like how Dolph Ziggler got involved only to leave without really any fanfare. Like, I thought they were setting up a triple threat match, which could have been really interesting because I'm a little tired of seeing Ambrose versus Owens, and Dolph Ziggler really needs something interesting in his career. But no, he just kind of left, and then they brought in Neville to be like the damsel in distress, which was really weird. I didn't think he fit. They probably should have put like R-Truth in that position because at least R-Truth and Ambrose have some friendly history together. But it is what it is. This feud still worked though because the animosity felt real. Kevin Owens really seemed like he hated Dean Ambrose, and Dean Ambrose seemed to feel the same way. And they both have good chemistry. They're both good on the mic. They both have interesting characters and strong personalities, and they're both violent and unpredictable. So it just worked. And this was a really, really good match. And I loved how there were a lot of really intense and vicious spots, but they did progress the story of this match. And that's, I think, what's important. It's not just, doing dangerous spots for the sake of doing dangerous spots. And it was very fast-paced, very intense. Once again, it felt like the climax to their story. They're really trying to hurt each other, and that's exactly what this match needed. Part of me at first was a little disappointed that they didn't follow through some of the crazier ideas. Like at one point, Kevin Owens put a table on top of another table, and I was like, ooh, is somebody actually going to go through those? And then there's another part where he sets up a bunch of chairs standing up, and he puts Ambrose onto it and plans on moonsaulting him right through those chairs. This is all probably a bit too dangerous for anybody to do, but the way they set it up, it was just so perfect that you really did feel the suspense. And they didn't have to actually go through with them because the execution was just so strong that you feel like the match could actually go that route. And so you're a little worried now for Ambrose or just the safety of these performers. So I thought this was great. I also liked the verbal exchanges. At one point, Kevin Owens says, "I hate you," and Ambrose fires back, "I hate you too." Once again, it just, that kind of stuff really made that animosity feel real. So excellent start. I agree with having Ambrose survive because the Intercontinental Championship needs a steadier reign than it's been getting. I feel like whoever has the belt never has it for very long. So I hope Ambrose turns out to be a very memorable champion. Next we have the Tag Team Championship, the New Day versus the Usos. Now, this wasn't as good of a storyline, but it's not entirely WWE's fault. It's obvious that they were setting up a New Day versus Lucha Dragons feud, and that actually was pretty interesting at first. But then Sin Cara got injured, and so they had to put an end to that and brought in the Usos as kind of a replacement. But for the most part, there wasn't really much of a story here. I feel like there could have been. The Usos, though, ever since they've returned, the WWE has treated them as an afterthought, which is a shame because they were once the most pivotal part of this division. But now it was obvious that they were just being fed to the New Day. I didn't feel like any of their verbal exchanges were that memorable. The New Day has been really feuding more with Chris Jericho than they have with the Usos, so this felt just kind of fillery. But the match itself was pretty fun. Fast paced, there were some cool spots. There's nothing really exciting. Well, I don't want to say it's not exciting, it is. But there's nothing really memorable, nothing that I will remember other than the fact that Xavier Woods is so entertaining outside of the ring that he actually ended up winning over the crowd. I don't think he intended to do that, and he tried to fix things, but it was just a little too late, to where it seemed like the Usos were betrayed by audiences. The New Day is almost too funny for their own good. But fuck, the whole shit with Chris Jericho was almost unwatchable. I never thought I'd say that. And that's what's so strange is the New Day is great on the mic. They can cut promos. But for whatever reason, whenever their enemies try to fire back, it just never really sounds that good. The Usos have very strong personalities too. They could be worthy opponents, but they're just too predictable. So it was a fun match, though, still worth watching. But because the storyline was so flat, there wasn't that much of an emotional payoff. You agree that the New Day probably should come out on top, but it didn't really mean a whole lot. I wonder who they're going to feud with next. Next, after this, we have the United States Championship. Alberto Del Rio versus Kalisto. This story, I don't want to say it's bad. I'm not entirely sure I liked it, though. John Cena was originally going to be the enemy here, or the challenger, but unfortunately he ended up getting injured. So since Sin Cara was also injured, they figured why not give Kalisto a chance. And Kalisto and Alberto Del Rio put some really good matches together. And I really have grown to like Del Rio. He's one of the few villains who is just straight up a total unpleasant asshole. Like most of them have like moments where they could at least pretend to be charming or pretend to be funny. You know, Sheamus, Kevin Owens, they do that when they're in the mood to do so, but Del Rio just never really even tries. He's just a total prick from beginning to end, and I love it. And Kalisto is a pretty good underdog. So therefore, I am interested to a point. However, when Kalisto beat Del Rio, I was like, I don't know if he was ready for this. I mean, Del Rio beat John Cena cleanly with a kick to the side of his head. It seems like that's going to hurt his momentum if he loses to somebody like Kalisto, who the announcers keep emphasizing how small he is, but also he just hasn't had a major solo career yet. And then that was ultimately meaningless because Del Rio won it back the following SmackDown. And now Del Rio has lost it again. And I don't know, it seems very sloppy booking to me, and I don't think it's going to help the United States Championship, and it's probably going to hurt both men in the long run, but we'll see. The match itself I thought was actually very entertaining. I think I liked this more than a lot of people because there were a lot of creative maneuvers here, stuff I don't see very often from either Del Rio or Kalisto, and it's very fast-paced. There are some sloppy moments too. The ending in particular had a few fuck-ups. But all in all, I thought it was a really fun match, so I won't complain.